Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Surya Prakash Upadhyay from Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi. Today we are going to talk on module Urbanization and Urbanism from the paper Sociology of Urban Transformations. This module introduces you to the ideas of urbanization and urbanism and how over the last 1 century these ideas have been productized in sociology. There is some sort of a commonsensical understanding of the city that we have. But you, as a student of sociology, need to understand the city beyond the common sense also. Therefore, we'll look at different dimensions of urbanization and urbanism and discuss how different schools of thought have delineated these ideas. We'll look at the Chicago school, which dominated the field of urban sociology for a long time, very long time, but came under scrutiny with the questions posed by the neo-Marxist and Los Angeles schools. Having set a background for conceptual understanding, we take up these issues in Indian context and discuss some of the prominent ideas and theorists of urban sociology in India. Lastly, we discuss Gyan Prakash's appeal for urban turn that has given a different understanding of urban sociology in particular and sociological practices in general. This module is an introductory module that introduces you to twin concepts, that is urbanization and urbanism. Since this entire paper rotates around these two ideas, therefore it is necessary to understand the basic premises around which various facets of the paper rotate. After finishing this module, you will be able to understand the theoretical basis of sociology of urban transformation also. Urbanization and urbanism form central trope around which urban social theory tries to discuss growth and development of cities. In a crude sense, urbanization and urbanism refer to two different facets of the same urban social world. Urbanization refers to the demographic and physical growth of the city, whereas urbanism refers to the socio-cultural dimension of the city. You must have observed behavioral, attitudinal differences along with differences in values and lifestyle that are found in villages and the city. So, how early thinkers such as Durkheim, Weber, Marx understood urbanization and urban social world, this will be discussed in this module. Nevertheless, we had to wait for a coherent discussion about cities before the Chicago school emerged. The Chicago school refers to a group of sociologists at the University of Sociology who engaged themselves with the city of Chicago, which was transforming very rapidly during that time. The scholars focused on the city of Chicago and looked at the city as social laboratory, where the true human nature could be explored. The school offered several concepts to understand the city. However, in this module, we would focus a few key ideas that rotate around land use, growth, and structuring an urban way of life. Robert Ezra Park, Ernest Burgess, Louis Wirth are some of the influential Chicago school urbanists who explored different dimensions of the city. The human ecology perspective, as well as the models of urbanization offered by the school, defined the course of development of many cities for a very long time. However, this school was attacked on the ground on several grounds. Like Harvey Mullach argues that the dominant ideas propounded by the Chicago theorists obscures to consider actual realities of social structure that shape the city and decisions that affect land use, public budget, and the urban social life. This shift in theorization also corresponds to the changing political economy in the mid-20th century. So you will notice, not only in this module, but others as well, that how and why ideas have been revised and enlarged during different time periods. In Indian context, urban sociology remained neglected for a very long time. In fact, Urban sociology in India was more about understanding the issues and challenges of urbanization rather than theorization of urban social world. Indian sociology and sociologists focused more on the ideas of village and issues of caste, which has its bearing on nationalist thinking as well. However, of late, varied dimensions are being taken up by sociologists in order to understand urban social world in India. Gyan Prakash's idea of urban turn in Indian sociology is also covered towards the end of this module. So, let us start with how we generally understand the terms city, urbanization, and urbanism. The moment we use the word city, certain places, images, and descriptions become apparent. We immediately call places like Mumbai, Delhi, New York, Shanghai, Los Angeles, London, or Paris as cities. We immediately associate these places with some physical features such as close settlement, skyscrapers, shopping complexes, multiplexes, and we also say that these cities have some arrangements for drinking water, sanitation, health, recreation, and entertainment. We also draw a physical limitation or boundary of each city. Therefore, primarily a city is a physical entity. But in cities, a large volume of trade, commerce, and financial services are also performed. Offices of business groups, government offices, and major units of administrative bodies are also located, which sustain educational and employment opportunities. Therefore, apart from being a physical or functional unity, a city is also an economic or and political entity. The cities are heterogeneous places where people from various social, cultural, and ethnic backgrounds live in close proximity. Every place grows in space, density, facilities, and complexity over time. Each of the cities we just named has its own history of growth, spatial and demographic and development. Therefore, in a temporal sense, every city has a history as well. However, one may ask, why are we so fascinated with cities? Why do we attach so much importance to the cities? In fact, the importance of cities are growing every day. Partly the importance of city is attached with the modernist dream and human aspiration to control nature, excel in every sphere of life, and a better management of human life. Cities are crucibles of modernist dreams. However, a city is much more a complex idea than what we have just discussed. You may now ask, how do cities grow? How have modern cities came into being? How do economy and technology influence the shape and culture of cities? Do cities' culture also influence economic and political structures? How do cities deal with the growth of population? Why do people migrate to cities? What is the social position of an individual in a city? What kind and how communities develop in cities? What happens to social and community life when people from different social, cultural, and ethnic backgrounds come to inhabit a city? What kinds of attitudes and behaviors do cities nurture among the individuals? How do people look at social relations in cities? In what ways urban life empower or disenfranchise an individual? Urbanization and urbanism form central trope around which urban social theory tries to discuss growth and development of cities. As Raj Chandravarkar says, the study of cities have been motivated by two concerns. First, urbanization was taken as an index of economic development and social change, not only for its part in the dissolution of feudalism in the medieval West, but also as a measure of modernization in the Third World today. The second concern in urban studies has related broadly to culture. This has been interpreted not simply in terms of the cultures of the inhabitants, but more generally, the urban as a social space is also associated with the state of mind. One can understand urbanism as the patterns of behavior, relationships, modes of thinking that characterizes urban dwellers, while urbanization is primarily understood as a process of movement of people from rural areas to urban areas, by virtue of which population as well as spatial boundary of a city grows. Often, this growth occurs due to increased economic activities, which triggers migration or pulls people from rural areas to urban areas. Earlier, it was common to consider rural-urban migration an essential cause of urbanization. However, in recent times, urban population growth is also influenced by urban-urban migration. In earlier times, urban growth in Kolkata, Mumbai, and Delhi might have occurred due to the rural to urban migration of manual labor who moved from villages to cities to work in manufacturing sector. In recent times, such as Hyderabad and Bangalore, also other cities like Mumbai are witnessing urban population growth due to movement of people from other cities. This population growth is mainly a result of migration of skilled workers to work in service sector. Urbanization is also quantified. It is measured around level of urbanization, that is ratio of urban to rural population, and rate of population growth in urban areas. The level of urbanization indicates urban population's share with respect to total population of a nation, while rate of urbanization indicates annual growth rate of urban population. Taking these two parameters together, one can say that cities have been growing and probably will grow further in the future. The growth of population in cities give rise to various issues such as shortage of residential spaces, shooting up of residential and office rents, outward and upward growth of the city, growth of slums, increased pressure on infrastructure, heavy traffic and road congestions, and many other environmental problems. The population growth also triggers pressure on basic amenities such as water and power supply. In effect, these also affect the quality of life in urban areas. Therefore, urbanization had important consequences on many aspects of social, political, and economic life. Emergence of cities in modern Europe. Archaeologists often claim that city as a space existed ever since human beings stopped sedentary life and began settled life, especially with the beginning of horticulture, pastoral, and agricultural practices. They consider size and density of population, street layout, existence of some central place, and based on remnants, the cities in places such as Indus Valley Civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, and so on are constructed. Kingsley Davis aptly points that every human settlement from the past cannot be called urban. There is a specific nature of cities that grew with modernity. In modern cities, new methods of commerce and trade developed. New economic structures grew, new work sites started, new jobs and modes of employment created. New population groups arrived, new industries and factories were established, and new social groups developed new cultural patterns and new social structures. The urban world is a provocative terrain to contemplate central experiences, structures, and problems of the social world and how they have transformed over the last 200 years. The growth of modern cities and thereby urbanization is closely associated with the idea of modernization, industrialization, and capitalism, which started in Europe from around mid-18th century. However, urban scholars have argued that for urbanization to take place, a threshold should be achieved in agriculture, which leads to surplus production, which further assists in the growth of new markets and new economies. With the advancements in science and technology, new machines developed, which sufficed growth of industries and thereby industrialization. The early industries were labor intensive and required a large number of people. People also saw incentives of working in industries rather than in agricultural field. Therefore, both pull and push factors played crucial role in migration of people to the cities. The rate of population growth at that time was very high, which the cities could not manage. There was lack of sanitation, crime rates were high, various diseases were prevalent, and mortality rate was high. The working and living conditions were poor. In 1801, urban population in Europe was only 17%, which rose to 35% in 1851, and again to 54% in 1891. However, industrialization alone cannot explain the nature and scale at which urbanization was experienced. A range of other determinants need to be considered, such as capitalist spurt of commerce and underlying profit motives, increase in financial services, cities serving as nodes for intercontinental commerce, and so on, also influence the growth of cities. Social scientists believed that the modern cities have assumed a different character due to changes in the modes of production. Based on this criterion, Joburg talks about urban typologies in terms of pre-industrial cities and industrial cities. For him, pre-industrial cities have base in agricultural practices and characterized by low social mobility and less social differentiation, whereas industrial cities have diverse economic opportunities and have high degree of social differentiation and specialized division of labor. Similarly, Robert Redfield classifies cities as orthogenetic, that is, a city of moral order and unitary folk culture, and heterogenetic, that is, a city of technical order that gives priority to economic growth. Hauswirth differentiates cities as parasitic, and that has a dampening effect on economic growth, and the generative city, that is, the city acts as a center of change and stimulates economic growth. The early thinkers were disturbed by the sordid nature of modern cities, its anomic nature, its alienating atmosphere, and a lost ideal community that characterized pre-modern human life. Marx and Engels analyze industrialization and capitalist system and talk about urban labor, working conditions, and their relationship with the bourgeoisie, that is the capitalist class. Similarly, Ferdinand Tönnies, a German sociologist, was concerned with the shift in social structure of city. For him, rural life was characterized by Gemeinschaft, that is, community feeling and ties that develop around families, kin groups, and neighborhood, and have face-to-face relationship. While Gesellschaft characterizes city life, which is mechanical and leads to disunity, individualism, and selfishness. Similarly, Emile Durkheim, a French sociologist, looks at social solidarity. For him, mechanical solidarity characterizes pre-modern societies, which refers to social bonds constructed on likeness and largely depends on commonalities, while modern societies exhibit organic solidarity, which refers complex division of labor where many different people specialize in many different occupations and develop a social order based on social differentiation. For Durkheim, city inhabitants have greater freedom, but impersonality, anomie, and alienation from social world also develops. Among all the early thinkers, George Simmel, a German sociologist, understands the ambivalent nature of the city. In his essay, The Metropolis and the Mental Life, he views city life in terms of social psychology. Simmel argues that nervous stimuli is a unique trait of modern city in which city dwellers are constantly bombarded with sights, sounds, and smells, and from which the city dweller has to cope with. He focuses on urbanism than on urbanization. In cities, the inhabitants learn to discriminate, become rational and calculative, and develop a blasé attitude. The urban inhabitants are reserved and detached and respond with head rather than heart. But the city environment, Simmel says, also provide liberating atmosphere which allows urban dwellers to free themselves from traditional social bonds. German sociologist Max Weber looks at the city as an ideal type. He argues that a city needs trade and commerce, legal system, political autonomy, self-sufficiency to protect itself, and needs social association where individuals could engage in social relationships. In his book, The City, he offers an ecological demographic model of city and understands the city as an economic system. Weber considered features like close settlement, large locality, lack of personal relationships, and non-agricultural life as distinctive feature of city. W.E.B. Du Bois discusses centrality of race in the analysis of urban social structure. Louis Mumford, in his book The City in History, visualized cities as a social phenomenon. He was not much concerned with city as a physical entity. Rather, he discusses the organic relationship between human being and environment. Despite such deep insights, there was no unified trajectory or comprehensive analysis of urban social structure, urban settlement patterns, urbanization and urbanism before the establishment of human ecology or the Chicago School. So let us see some of the theoretical renderings that came out from the Chicago School and some of the key ideas that were propagated by the school also. As I said, the Chicago School refers to a group of sociologists at the University of Chicago. The scholars focused on the city of Chicago and looked at the city as laboratory, as I said earlier also, where the true human nature could be explored. The school offered several concepts to understand city. However, in this module, we would discuss a few key ideas that rotate around land use, growth and urban restructuring, and urban way of life. The school was also influenced by the functional theory and social Darwinism and looked at city as social organism where different parts or segments are bound together by internal processes. For the Chicago School, the cities are similar to biotic or symbiotic environments in which inhabitants compete for paltry resources. Robert Ezra Park, Ernest Burgess, Louis Wirth are a few among many influential Chicago School urbanists who explored different dimensions of the city. With the publication of the book, The City, the school announced its arrival. The city of Chicago, which saw an unprecedented growth at the time, served as an apt place for the Chicago School to investigate processes of modern growth. As prevalent at the time, the school offers a modernist view of the city as a unified whole. The school looked at urban processes and conditions through subjective experiences of urbanites. As Michael Deere writes, the works of urbanites of Chicago School is typically grounded in the individual subjectivities of urbanites, their personal choices, and ultimately explaining the overall urban condition, including spatial structure, crime, poverty, and racism. The school propounded several influential ideas that formed a foundational concept in understanding the evolution of differentiated urban social world and urban way of life. Robert Ezra Park coined the term human ecology that attempts to apply biological processes or concepts to the social world and maintains that the city and city life are product of competition in the natural environment. The school also focused on the physical form of the city and human adjustments to the ecological conditions of urban life. Among several ideas of the Chicago School, concentric ring theory, propounded by Ernest Burgess, remained important for a long time in understanding the pattern of urban growth. The concentric theory proposes that a city grows outward in continuous circles around a central business district, that is called CBD. Burgess argues that CBD forms the core of the city. Around CBD, a transitional zone develops in offices and dwelling places by converting older houses. Beyond transitional zone, working population zone develops, which contains residential units of working men and lower class population. Further, a middle class zone develops where middle classes have residences which has relatively new dwelling units. At the outermost, the commuter zone develops, which is separate from the continuous built-up area of the city. In response to Burgess' model, two more theories of urban morphology were developed by the Chicago School. Homer Hoyt, in his sector theory, noted that a tendency of cities to grow in star-shaped rather than concentric form along highways that radiate from a center with contrasting land uses in the interstices. Hoyt stresses the importance of axial roadways that spreads the outward growth of the built-up area. Concentric zone as well as sector theory are based on the idea that city develops around a central business district. However, Harris and Ullman argued that there are several subsidiary centers beyond the CBD. They called their theory as multiple nuclei theory, which proposed that cities have a cellular structure in which land uses develop around multiple growth nuclei within the metropolis. These theories remained influential in urban social theory for most part of the 20th century, which also influenced planning as well as growth of cities. It should be noted that urbanization concentrates mainly on demographic growth, and the Chicago theorists focused on ecological dimensions of the cities. Although both demographic and ecological aspects are important in any urban or rural study, in themselves, they do not enable us to understand the social institutions, interactions, activities, values, and norms of the urban dwellers. Therefore, another influential idea that came out of the Chicago school was urbanism as a way of life by Louis Wirth. The idea of urbanism as a way of life rests on the idea that cities have a distinct mode of life. He stressed on the study of social aspects of urbanization and considers population size, density, and heterogeneous social groups as the characteristic feature of the urban life. As discussed earlier, socio-cultural aspects of city was already being considered by theorists, but it was with Wirth's article that urbanism as an idea was established in urban studies. Ferdinand Tönnies, Emil Durkheim, George Simmel, as well as Max Weber had already described patterns of social relations that develop in modern cities. However, Louis Wirth carried the perspective of the 19th century European theorist in the American city of the early 20th century. He drew greater attention than Simmel to the negative consequences of modernity, especially the status of Durkheimian anomy and urban social problems and personality disorders. As said in the beginning, the school came under strong scrutiny towards the 1970s when scholars, often labeled as neo-Marxist, used the political economy approach to understand social inequalities perpetuated in the city. Harvey Moloch, using the metaphor of city as growth engine, explains the gap that exists in the description of the city. He argues that the dominant ideas propounded by Chicago theorists obscures to consider actual realities of social structure that shape the city. Scholars argued that the capitalist economy structures opportunities that result in differential access by social group and location, and that economic changes influence political and social life as well. The research agenda that emerged from these studies pinpointed the phenomenon of economic restructuring as the key to understanding urban issues. With the end of Fordism and beginning of flexible production, the labor employed in the erstwhile factories and in the industries were hard hit. In such situation, the modern character of cities with central district transformed into several centers. Michael Deere extends the critique of human ecology with a discussion of the Los Angeles School of Urban Studies. He suggests that the modernist hegemony of urban elites has given a way to a polycentric, polyglot, and polycultural dimension of urban development. Deere suggests that Los Angeles has superseded as a paradigm of urban growth in the 21st century. The shift in production system also affected land use and value of land. The erstwhile factories were converted into gated communities, multiplexes, and shopping complexes. The right to use city spaces became a contested issue, and urban land and city spaces became properties of middle class and the rich sections of the society. Researchers and several agencies, such as UNDP, have projected that the developing nations will urbanize faster than the developed world in the 21st century. The year 2007 was announced a remarkable point in human history where more than 50% of world population lived in urban regions. The Census of India 2011 indicated that more than 30% of Indian population is living in its cities. Compared to Europe and North America, this proportion of urban population is still too low, but it is also related to the process of urban growth and the development experienced in different places. Unlike Europe, India has a different experience with modern urbanization process, which has a lot of influence due to its colonial history. Nevertheless, one of the important aspects of Indian urbanization is that it has a continuous history of urbanization starting from the Indus Valley to the present day, as says Ramchandran. It is a difficult task here to trace the entire history of urbanization and urbanism in India in this short introduction. As like our discussion on European urbanization, we will discuss major trends of urbanization in India that began during colonization. During initial days of British rule, Indian cities did not experience much growth, but later on, several pre-existing cities were revived and new cities established. There were phases of growth of cities across Indian subcontinent. These ancient cities flourished around some specific functions, though they also served other functions. Ramchandran says cities grew in number and size during the Mauryan and post-Mauryan periods, that is from 300 BC to AD 600, both in northern India as well as in the extreme south. Cities declined and were largely neglected during the post-Gupta period. In southern India, on the other hand, urbanization attained a zenith during the period from 800 to 1200 AD. Urbanization on a subdued scale flourished in northern India under the influence of Muslim rulers and attained a climax during the Mughal period when many of Indian cities were established. Further, Ramchandran adds, the story of urbanization in historical times is a story of spatial and temporal discontinuities. The causative factors behind urbanization varied from time to time, leading to not one but several urbanization phases and processes at different points in time. In the prehistoric period, urbanization was synonymous with the origin and rise of civilization itself, thus manifesting itself essentially as a cultural process. In the historical periods from ancient times to the British period, urbanization was inextricably related to the rise and fall of kingdoms, dynasties, and empire, and thus, in effect, urbanization during the period was essentially a political process. Ramchandran further says, in the recent times, urbanization has been associated with industrialization and economic development. In this sense, urbanization is essentially an economic process. Ramchandran's description of cities essentializes different phases of urbanization, such as growth of initial cities is associated as cultural process, while the later phases of urbanizations are associated with political and economic process. He might be talking about dominant characters of cities at various points of time in history, but it is difficult to dissociate various processes that work together and give shape to cities. In modern times, as Ramchandran says, cities developed around economic processes. However, it needs to be recognized that economic processes feed into and fed by political and cultural processes as well. Another dominant idea in considering urbanization in India is periodization of urban history, that is, ancient as Hindu, medieval as Islamic, and modern as British. There are major issues that need to be considered while tracing urban history, urbanization, and urbanism in India. 1. The periodization of urban history used in European history is highly problematic in Indian context and prompts generalizations which may not be justified. Also, that there is no family resemblance between the colonial towns of North America and those of the South Asia. Annapurna Shaw, in a different manner, discusses urban history in three phases: pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial. Rao highlights two important issues regarding studying urban social and cultural life. According to Rao, some scholars believe that majority of Indian population, that is around 70%, still live in rural areas. Therefore, there is no point in considering
urban as a subject for investigation. In addition, unlike Europe, there is no rupture in urbanization and urbanism in India. Urbanites in India are mostly migrants from rural areas who carry rural and traditional cultural practices to the cities. Similarly, Pocock argued that village India and urban centers in India are the elements of the same civilization. Nevertheless, urban India forms an important site for various social inquiries. Even though 70% population lives in villages, but 30% population that lives in India is not insignificant. In absolute terms, this 30% population forms a substantial proportion of Indian population. Also, even if urban world is not similar to European cities, but it is not similar to Indian villages. On various counts, such as family structure, caste values, religious rituals, economic practices, political affiliations, different modalities, and these need to be explored. Rao rightly suggests that it is necessary to ask questions how traditional and modern interact and what are the emergent forms of social relations, behavior, associations in urban areas. Urbanization is considered an important index of development, growth, modernization, and social change. Therefore, one cannot simply ignore all the things that we discussed. Urban was considered to be a new beginning in the civilizational history of human being. It was also thought that urban sites will help in upward mobility, in experiencing freedom, and in realizing modern values. In Western context, urbanization produced a rupture with traditional system. In Indian context, one may argue that there is no complete breakdown from the traditional structures and processes, but is also necessary to emphasize that cities have definitely modified tradition. Also, cities were imagined to be the crucibles of self-dependent India, where one can overcome limitations exerted by traditional social structures, for example, caste system. Along this line of thinking, urbanization is considered to supplement modernization of India. Here, urban is considered a nodal point that would influence social, economic, and cultural changes in the villages. We will be discussing Indian urbanization from various perspectives in other modules of the course, such as how is urban and city defined in India, how colonial cities grew in the history, how colonial port cities developed in the colonial times. Similarly, we will be discussing growth of industrial towns, planned cities, and how cultures in small towns differ from metro cities in India, how slums grow in the cities, and what kind of politics is played around the land. When we talk about the cities, there is some kind of effort to discuss about the beautification and the cleaning of the cities, and but doesn't lead automatically. It also goes through some kind of politics in that is involved, the city structure, in the nature of the localities, and thereby it also targets the poor and it displaces them from the city boundary. Therefore, it all need to be considered, and this module is an effort to help you out in understanding and exploring the various facets that we have just indicated in this module.
So, students, let us summarize what we have learned in this module. Urbanization continues to be important. We all know this. But with the growth of neoliberal economic settlements, urbanization continues to be critically more important. It is also important to recognize that in some ways, the rural-urban dichotomy is losing its salience. The boundary between rural and urban is increasingly blurred, and many of the traditional distinctions between urban and rural cultures, lifestyles, and enterprises are eroding or reforming. Of late, scholars have started paying greater attention towards cities, which is quite different from the ways in which cities were imagined, explained, and discussed in India before liberalization of economy in the 1990s. The imaginations about city in India were highly influenced by the thoughts of Gandhi, Nehru, and other nationalist leaders, for whom the real India comprises of the villages, which itself was influenced by the colonial knowledge about India. For the colonialist, India comprised of self-sufficient village republics. Gandhi's exhaustion of Gram Swaraj is closely associated with colonial construction of village republic. Gandhi considered cities as places of evil and corruption that takes away simplicity, authenticity, and tempers the inner spirit of Indian civilization. Nehru also shared the same vision, but considered village as the sites of ignorance and backwardness. After independence, this vision about Indian nation was also shared by social scientists, planners, and administrators who approached city as a site of several problems such as crime, violence, corruption, housing, and so on. Cities for a large part of post-independence Indian history was approached and understood from this perspective. Gyan Prakash argues that the general trend between 1940s to 1970s was to treat cities as locations for a range of urban problems. The importance of cities rested on the idea that cities are a seat of government, industry, and commerce. This kind of imagination and approach obscured considerations about urban social life, urban social structure, and urban way of living. Gyan Prakash further argues that such an approach created an abstract image of city which hindered social sciences to look at lived environment. It is common to observe that most of the cities in India as elsewhere are now expanding and making connections not only with the global with the other cities of the world, but also with the countryside. And there is a greater role of market and global techniques of governance and globalization in the city. This importance of cities are growing also. In fact, as many commentators have argued, under globalization and neoliberal economic activities, the importance of nation state is now being taken up by cities where most of the market activities are performed. So in order to bring in more capital, finance and opportunities, the cities are seen to have a rapid advancement in urbanization. It is in this overall context that Gyan Prakash places the urban turn. He asserts that part of the reason for the emergence of urban from the shadows has to do with globalization. At a time when neoliberal forms are changing Indian cities fundamentally, it is all the more relevant and urgent to understand the city as society. Further, Gyan Prakash says that the modern city as a particular configuration of social relations and experience, that is not just a site where politics and society happens, but itself an embodiment of as well as a condition of possibility for society. Therefore, it is an urgent requirement to read class, ethnicity, religion, economy, culture, and politics in the very texture of the city, in its built and institutional form, and in the spaces and rhythms of the everyday life. Thank you.